And the last conversation I had was one-on-one with the head of the company that said, I don't want to be in the business of telling a Black woman that she should be grateful for what she has. But I think that's the situation that we're in right now. Good morning, everyone. Welcome back to another video. I really had to work myself up to filming this video and telling the stories that I want to, and discussing all the concepts and the dynamics that are at play in scenarios like this that continue showing up as patterns in my life. And it's so interesting, and I'm sure yours as well, if you're watching this, and it's so weird that I had to overcome this guilt as I'm preparing for this video, because in my mind it's like the word rehashing keeps popping up, and an image of a person rolling their eyes, and I had to overcome this feeling of I should just focus on what's good in life, focus on what I'm grateful for, and not rehash this because it's in the past. And then I began thinking how much of a shame it is that that is the narrative, that's the mental barrier that I have to overcome just to talk about something that wounded me, this pattern that keeps wounding me time and time again. Before I even discuss it, I have to overcome this feeling of guilt of rehashing and trying to unsee a person rolling their eyes, which I just reframed it as a reason even more that I have to do this, for myself. And that's what I'm here on YouTube for, posting daily, is to just overcome this fear of speaking, using my voice more. And yeah, just overcoming the fear of being seen. This is what this is for. And so perfect topic. It's unfortunate that it even exists in this world. So one thing that I've been thinking about a lot is the psychological toll that being Black at work has on a person, especially if you are one of few or the only Black person at your job, all of the racial prejudice that you have to navigate on a daily basis. And I hear a lot about it in the corporate America, right? I've worked in corporate America. Those dynamics are so insane. One thing that I've heard less about is in the context of nonprofit America, or just the nonprofit sector. And I assume too that a lot of the folks that talk about being Black in corporate America may also be referring to the nonprofit realm. But I think I think it's important to name that here, because when you think of a person that works at a nonprofit, it's typically those that have values that you wouldn't think would perpetuate white supremacy. You wouldn't think would perpetuate and oppression, you know? And so it's so interesting though that it absolutely does. And this story is pretty recent, that happened in my life within the past 12 months. And very frequently do I find myself thinking about the day by day of this situation, the effects of the situation, the toll, and this fire just continuing to raise up in me, because it's a manifestation of a pattern that has existed throughout my entire professional life, that is wounding and it's exhausting. And I don't think that my strength should be measured by how well I can forget it, how well I can move past it, what stories I tell myself, the quality of the stories that I tell myself in order to get my mind off of it so it stops hurting me. And it's such a shame that those are my go to, not a shame, but those are my go to coping mechanisms. And I want to just be better about giving validity to how, to the level of exhaustion that it takes in order to move through all these gymnastics that Black people are put through at work. And so I've talked about different facets of this story too, and a few of my other shorter videos, but this is an opportunity to unpack. It's pretty vulnerable to do so as well, because this is my real recent life. These folks might see this video too, who many of whom I imagine would be the eye rollers and the people using the words rehashing. And all the same, it's something that um is not exclusive to them, and like it's they share these traits with so many people that I have encountered and will encounter in my life, and I want to talk about it. So the story that you've heard tidbits of before is that last year my personal farm was awarded a large grant from the state. And I remember it was around a time where there was a federal funding freeze, and so many organizations lost their funding, and the future was uncertain, so they were going through layoffs and like people were leaving. And so as folks were looking for jobs, I said, man, I'm not trying to work like another job right now. I want to begin taking myself like really seriously and my farm really seriously and begin applying for grants. And so I started doing that. I like wrote like 8 to 10 grants per month for a year, right? But this was the first month that I was doing it that I applied for this specific grant. And so I remember I like wrote it 3 days before it was due. It's a governmental grant, so all the attachments, it was insane to like get everything together, all my ducks in line, all of my just like my state documents in line, federal documents in line, strategic plan, just like 20-page narrative. It was really a doozy. But in 3 days, 3 days before it was due, is when I submitted it. And so a couple months later, much to my surprise, like the folks that were making the decision were reaching out and asking for like specific information. But I'm like, yo, they would only be asking me this if they're like lining me up, to like to actually get the grant. And so I did get it, and it was awarded yeah, a couple weeks after they had been like reaching out. And so I held this news like close for a while. I wanted to share it. I talked about my difficulty with sharing it and like why it was difficult in a previous video that I'll link below. But yeah, like I remember holding it close for a while, and then and then eventually it just began like trickling out. And so i'm at this I'm at my job, and I remember we were talking. I was in a one-on-one with my supervisor, who was a white man, right? And a one-on-one with my supervisor, and we're talking about programs similar to the ones that this grant that I just received typically funds, right? And so we're talking about that, talking about ideas for new programming and things. And I bring up, which I shouldn't have done, and I've been thinking about how this ignited a lot, and trying not to hold guilt for the fact that I shared, because it's something that I'm excited about. But in retrospect, I know how to scan for people that I cannot trust before, like a vetting process, developing a vetting process before I even get to the point where I'm sharing such things. You know what I mean? Like, mistake, unfortunate mistake. But I shared, and I was like, oh yeah, this bucket of money, my farm just got funded from this bucket of money that we were just talking about, right? So I sent him the link that came from the press release for the state. And it is so common in this job that is comprised with folks that have similar businesses to get grant funding from the state, from the feds, from nonprofits, from foundations, from corporate grants. It is so common. So that also contributed to my comfort in sharing that I got this funding, right? Granted, it's not 25K, 50K, it's like hundreds of Ks, okay? So then he is thrown off, okay? This man is thrown off. He's speechless. He's stuttering over his words, and he says, "Oh, when did you apply for this?" And I said, "Oh yeah, like back in, I think it was February or January, because this was around April. Back in February or January, And I talked to him about the process, and then he said, "Huh, yo, I should have known. Yo, I should have known that something was about to happen when he said, huh, that's all you have to say. That's all you have to say is, hmm, wow, interesting. Well, yeah, congratulations. Thanks. And I'm like, okay, well, bye, like, and then, we finish our one on one. And I'm like, yo, I remember after that meeting, I was like, yo, that was so weird. But like, it is like surprising, and it's common again. So I didn't think much would come. But when he said, huh, he looked concerned. And I'm like, something is about to go down. Hours later, head of the company messages me, hey, we'll call him Frank. Frank told me about your grant, and I want to talk to you about what this means for your employment here, right? But congratulations to you. Like, it's a personal win. Like, congratulations. But we need to have a conversation with HR to talk about what this means for your employment. And in my mind, immediately, I didn't even respond to that. I didn't respond at all to that. Um, because I'm like, oh, this is going into a territory where I really need to protect myself because I've seen this before. I've navigated this before, right? And so I'm not about to be all emotional so immediately, right? And freak out and think that this is something that maybe it's not. I'm going to remain silent, not respond, and just wait for the invitation to talk to HR plus Frank, right? And I'm thinking in my mind, like, when folks get grants for their farming operations, for their side projects, whatever, do they get this chat as well? What do you think the answer is? What do you think the answer is? I didn't think so. And so I wait. The chat with HR is scheduled for the following day. So thankfully, I have time to sleep, and so does everybody else. And I thought that, okay, maybe everybody won't be coming from such a crazy emotional space, right? Including myself, because we're going to have time to sleep tonight. Okay? No, I was completely wrong. So, I wrote partners into this grant, right? Who I had not shared the news with them yet. And so I'm not publishing this far and wide. I didn't even tell them yet. And so it's not time to be talking about this all far and wide and giving you details that I didn't even share to begin with to the people that are involved apart from this workplace. And so here I am again. I find myself again in this meeting talking and convincing a panel of white people that what I'm doing isn't bad, right? That's eventually what it became. Let me just back up a little bit. So they send the invite. I go into the meeting. There's those 30 seconds of niceties that everybody says during a meeting, right? And I'm playing it cool. I'm heated though, because before this, I'm kind of freaking out. My heart's beating really fast. My palms are sweaty. That never happens unless I'm about to play the piano in front of a billion people, you know? And I can tell everybody else is feeling guarded as well, but they're trying to play nice and say these niceties about the weather, about how I'm feeling, about what's on my agenda for today, da 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 da, right? And so then we get into it. And the person that sent me that chat that says we need to talk about what this means for your employment starts and says, okay, so just give us an idea of what it is that you applied for and what it is you're about to do with this money. And I said, no, you tell me what the problem is and what we need to talk about regarding my employment. You tell me what the problem is. Why are we even here? What does it matter about what I'm doing and what I'm not doing? How similar it is to whatever you were construing in your mind for a possible future program here? Like, you tell me what we're doing here. And I have never talked to them like that. I've never presented myself in this way. I always am too pleasant to avoid being seen as the way that how I'm portraying myself now is, which is aggressive, argumentative, defensive, sassy, right? I avoid any opportunity for me to be perceived that way. And that's how I move. That's how I've been moving. But right now, you're going to talk to me about what it means for my employment. So, no, you tell me what we're doing here. Going in circles, didn't answer that, brought it back to me and my ideas, my plans, essentially saying, we just want to understand what it is that you are doing with these funds, what your program will look like, um, just so that we have an understanding. And she like toned it down a little bit, just so that we have an understanding that, if a person is interested, we know where to route them, whether it's your program or somebody else's program that doesn't exist here. It doesn't exist here. But we just want to have an understanding so that we have a baseline of what it is that you're doing so that we can just like do some outreach, whenever the opportunity arises. I was like, in my mind, I was shocked. I was shocked. And I was like, okay, so this is not about my employment then. This meeting went on for like an hour and a half. Frank is here saying, just like saying nothing. Honestly, it's so interesting how like you can be saying a mouthful of words, you could be saying all these sentences, but you're not saying anything. You're speaking generally because you're uncomfortable with being direct with me, because you didn't even tell me that you were reporting me, essentially. And now I'm in this room with you, who I just told something yesterday, and HR and the head of the company being grilled. HR steady on mute taking notes. And I remember the feeling of wanting access to that notes document, because the thought that the narrative was going to be unilaterally spun, unilaterally um, qualified and described really was getting under my skin, because and I kept asking, and I knew at the time, and in retrospect, it's like, why were you asking so much for this document? It's going to go in your file, dog. Like in your HR file, in your employee file, you can't have access to it. But I even asked for a copy of it that could be copied and pasted into the thing that I don't have access to, because I do not want you, and I said it, I don't want you, blank, to be the person who is unilaterally describing what this conversation is right now. And I was yelling at them. I was yelling at them, and I eventually said that I wasn't yelling. I was talking like this, like really, like, you know. But I eventually said, between the three of you, you have been here the longest, right? You know what's in the best interest of this company. So if you are going to talk to me about my employment and fire me, do it. I was so fed up, and I said that 3 times. And then I wonder, even now to this day, if they thought that I was recording them. Because if I'm inviting you, I'm not scared of being fired by you. I'm not scared of being fired by you, because this pattern has existed so many times in my life. So if you know what's best, and if you think I'm jeopardizing what's best for the company, fire me. Fire me. And they were like, no, 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 we're not trying to fire you. No, this is not what this is about. And it kept getting toned down, kept getting toned down. We just want to document essentially what it is that you're doing, because anybody that has like outside employment has to go through this. And I asked them, I was like, so you're telling me, you are certifying to me that everybody who has a side gig, everybody who has a farm here, which gives us so much value as an organization, which is what we say to all this press, right? Everybody that has anything on the side, it's been documented. You've scheduled meetings with them to talk about what it means for their employment and question their judgment. You've questioned their judgment and going after what it is that they want to do. That's what you're telling me has happened. And then that couldn't be answered. No, 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 that's not what we're saying. So it's like, all right, well, what are you saying? It was this dance between what you're doing adds so much value. So we just want to understand the value so that we can take advantage of the value, versus I can't understand, Jesse, why you cannot see what this problem is. And so I laid that out on the table. Is this about understanding the value and like, oh my gosh, this really exciting thing that I'm doing in my life that you keep coming back to because I'm coming for you right now, just as you're coming for me? Or is this to reprimand me, to scare me, or to fire me? We keep talking in circles. What are we here to do? Right. And I think to this day, like, do they think that I was recording them? Because they changed their stories so much from the beginning. And I never got access to that document. I never got access to a copy of the document and what was recorded, of course, right? And then it ended with, you are so valuable. You are just so valuable. And I think that we're just sad. Like, oh, this makes me so mad, dog. We're just sad that you didn't trust us enough to like share this big thing that you're doing with your life. We're just so happy for you. And so that's why we're sad that you didn't tell us. And so it's like, okay. And she was saying that, like, yeah, Frank has been thinking about something like this for like a decade. He's been thinking of it for like a decade. At first, I'm like, did I unknowingly apply for something that they also applied to? That was not even the case either. It was that Frank, my supervisor, had been thinking about something like this for like a decade. And so I said, so this is about navigating hurt feelings. I'm not interested. I'm not interested in calming anybody down because their feelings are hurt. Do you know how frequently my feelings are hurt? And I'm not coming to you talking about da 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 da. No, I just have to use my own coping mechanisms and get past it and get over it. You don't call a meeting and spread all of this hurt because I mean, that's what they were saying was the reason. It's like, I'm just so hurt. Even if that was the case, I'm not your mom, dog. If you're hurt, go get some ice cream, go for a walk in the park, and get over it. You know? Like, what are we doing here? You're spreading something because you're upset when really you should just use your. I keep repeating myself, but like, you understand what I'm trying to say. You understand what I'm trying to say. Then decided that a follow up meeting to like quell my request of wanting to contribute to the documentation of what happened, because I kept saying, you can't just corner me if there's no policy to not do X, Y, and Z. And if this meeting is the ignition of such a policy, let's start drafting it. But I'm not going to I'm not going to comfort Frank, dog. Like, that's not what I'm here for. I'm not here to comfort you. If you're about strategy and policy, let's start drafting it right now. So then HR taking notes about like the ideas that I was having about like what the policy should be. And I started saying it, and they would never implement anything like this. And so if you wouldn't implement it, don't unofficially enforce it with me in this room. You're cornering me. If you don't want to make it a pervasive policy that everybody has to sign, get trained on, and abide by, then let me go. Let me go. And so we're taking, like, they were writing down the bullet points of the policy. It's just like, nobody, I was saying things like, nobody can apply to any grant without clearance from the organization. If you are thinking about it, you need to notify them in this way. If you decide to apply, you need to inform them in this way. If you get awarded, these are the measures that need to be taken. No, they're writing it down, but it's like, y'all would never do anything like this because of the values that you say that you have to your employees and to external places. You would never, right, jeopardize your main value proposition. And I knew that. And so the follow up meeting was essentially a time to like codify this thing, this like policy, right? And in the follow up meeting, it was just Frank and HR. The head of the company was not there. So this follow up meeting happened a couple days later, where they were essentially saying that they wanted to see the budget. They wanted to see my grant budget to understand how much I was going to pay myself from this grant so that they could change. They literally said this, dog. It's like, how dumb. So that they can change my salary at the company. They wanted to know how much I was going to be paid from this grant that is for my personal thing so that they could change my salary associated with the company. Now, it's really important to say that in the beginning, I mentioned that so many layoffs had happened. We had like a staff of 80 and we went down to six. And I was one of the six that was preserved. That is very important to remember. Okay. Very important to remember that I was one of six of 80 people that was preserved through all of the layoffs that happened due to the loss of funding. And so all of this is happening at the same time that that's happening. Very important backdrop to what's going on in this meeting. While because everything was downsized, everybody's salaries was also downsized because that just what had to be what it is, and I was down with that because it's like, yeah, we're gonna keep this work going. I'm very into it. Do you understand what I'm saying? I'm very into like what I'm doing. So if we need to downsize, if everybody's salary has to be cut, so be it. Like, I'm here, I'm committed, I'm writing more grants for the company. Like, I'm here and I'm committed. And so, backdrop to all these other conversations that are happening. So in this meeting, they're requesting my budget, thinking that, trying to make it seem that they're just simply documenting to inform this probable policy that we're here to discuss, right? And so I was like, so you want to see my papers? You want to see my papers? That's what you're saying. You want me to go get my documents that I poured myself into that have nothing to do with this. You want me to go get them and present them to you so that you can inform the policy? What? And so that you can decrease my salary. Here. Blew my mind. And I was like, is that legal? HR? Can you do that? HR? Right when I asked that question, it was like, flip the script, stopped asking for my papers. And then they tried to say, again, leaning on what they leaned on before. We're just trying to understand, in case of an eventual audit, if we are paying you from money that comes from this organization or the same entity, that we're not also paying you. And I'm like, from the same entity, even though they're two different budgets. It's like that's permissible because I'm the work. Even if you were ever to fund me from this entity, which you never would, because that's also not even present here at the moment. Um, and the nature of my work here doesn't align with that. And so, one, even if that was the case, it wouldn't be a problem because if I was partially funded by them through you guys, my work in nature would be very different and happen at different times than the time that I am working elsewhere. Like, so I was like, is it a matter of just delineating the time and me communicating to you when I'm going to be working there? And they're like, yeah, that's what this is about. And I'm like, oh, okay. Well, here's the times. Are we done? Work here in the morning, work here in the evening. Are we done? Well, yeah, I guess we just wanted to get a better understanding of like your budget for other things too. It's like, y'all are playing. And I said, no, right? I was like, I'm not comfortable with that. Well, can you create a one pager that describes this program so that we can put it on file? No, because still, I have not told the people that I've even partnered with that this is even awarded yet because I'm crafting that email, crafting all the attachments, crafting all the next steps for them, getting all the financial structures in order to actually do the things that I'm going to put in this email for them. No, I'm in the middle of getting it together. No, you know what I'm saying? And so then after this conversation, there's no follow up conversation about this, right? Funding begins to be unfrozen. Funding gets to be unfrozen. And people start to come back from layoff, right? So now it's maybe like a month later, and I'm talking to, let's call her Elizabeth. Talking to Elizabeth, who is white, beautiful person, still love Elizabeth. So we're chatting about like, oh my gosh, these past few months have been so crazy. And then Elizabeth is just like, yeah, man, I'm just happy that they can like actually reinstate everybody's salary. Like, that's really great news. And I was like, Elizabeth, This is making me hot, dog. I'll be right back. I need to like go wipe my face. Can you see that I'm flushed? My skin is turning red. And I said, Elizabeth, what do you mean they reinstated everybody's salary? She was like, yeah, this coming Monday, everybody's salary. They like sent out this big thing. They had one-on-ones with everybody whose salary is being reinstated, and their salaries are being reinstated. So you didn't hear? And I'm like, no. Got really awkward between me and Elizabeth. Elizabeth was like, you should reach out to them immediately. So then I was like, I will. And I did immediately. Wrote HR, who was just recently requesting my budget, typing up all these notes in a document she wouldn't give me access to. And I said, hey, is everybody's, and I wish I just was more straightforward. Is everybody's salary being reinstated or is it just some people? She was like, it's just some people. And then I said, okay, am I the only person whose salary is not being reinstated? She was like, yep. I was like, okay. So I'm writing all these grant narratives, keeping the lights on, developing strategy, reworking programs. I'm working. And everybody's role has changed to some degree. And yet, I am the only person out of a growing number of staff. Like now, we're like over 20 people as folks are coming back. And I am the only person whose salary is not being reinstated. And so I was shocked, and I had to take a couple days to like process the very direct answers, which I'm grateful for, because it gave me clarity that I'm the only person whose salary is not being reinstated. And then I remember getting myself together in a couple days, going back, scheduling meetings with all the people that were involved in this decision to essentially ask them why. And they said, well, the nature of your role has changed so much that it's not justified to like bring you back up to where you were at. And then I went person by person, who everybody whose salary was reinstated, and said their role has changed in the same way. And yet their salaries reinstated. And there was always a reason, always a reason. I remember getting so fed up that I put in for 3 weeks of vacation to think about if I wanted to work there or not. And I was very transparent about that. And I said, I'm so angry that I need to just step away. And the last conversation I had was one-on-one with the head of the company that said, I don't want to be in the business of telling a Black woman that she should be grateful for what she has. But I think that's the situation that we're in right now. I don't want to be in the business of telling a Black woman that she should be grateful for what she has. I don't want to be in that business, right? But I think that's the situation that we're in right now. I need to get up and walk around. I need my feet feel like they're about to fall off. When that went into my ears, I was not only shocked. I don't know why I was so shocked. I don't think I've ever, no, I have heard it way more overt than that actually, but not for a while. It felt like somebody like pierced my heart and triggered this inferiority complex that I battle with daily and try to evade daily, but also stay in because I police my language. I mask so heavily. I overperform, you know? And you're telling me that you don't want to be in the business of telling a Black woman XYZ, but that's the situation that we're in right now, is such a psychologically manipulative way to communicate, because your first couple sentences are a disqualifier saying, I don't want to. but bam. And on top of all of the other wounds of like being in that room, trying to justify my actions and my thoughts when other people are doing the exact same thing, but I'm the only one that y'all are talking to, getting through that, getting through the fact that you did not think that it was justified to reinstate, not give me a raise, none of that, like reinstate me to the level of work and leadership that I contribute here. That didn't happen. And now you're telling me that I should be grateful for what I have. Felt like I was just kicked to the ground, and then after I was on the ground was kicked a little bit more, you know. And so I just nodded because I didn't have anything left to say at that point. I just nodded, and then I went on vacation for 3 weeks, wrote my resignation letter, and then when I got back, the day that I got back, I had an early morning meeting with a new HR person that had just come back, who was black, and the head of HR, the head of the company, who's told me that I should be grateful for what I have. When after 3 weeks, early morning meeting, those two telling me that my salary has been reinstated. And I said, why? Well, because we just value you so much and da 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 da. I feel like they discussed the liability, assessed the liability that this could bring to them legally, and was like, you know what, let's just not deal with that and instead just bumper back up by 10K, you know? Um, I recently watched this video of this woman. I'll try to find her channel and like put it right here. Really great video discussing that if you demonstrate that you are willing to put up with XYZ, then that becomes the new baseline. That becomes a new baseline of how you will be treated. And at this time, this grant wasn't up and running yet. I didn't have systems set up yet. I was in the process of doing so. And I felt financially insecure. And I stayed after they reinstated my salary. And now, as I reflect on that and all the issues that came thereafter, I take so much accountability because I showed them that, yes, you can do this to me. You can say this to me. You can treat me this way. You can exclude me in this way. You can not value trust building with me because if I say something, I know that I could be in the same position as before. And it's like I cared about the work so much. And I'm coming from a place of racial trauma and really not having that healed at all. So everything is reactive. Everything comes from a place of scarcity and inferiority instead of recognizing, yo, this is not right, and leaving. And this is a lot about what I've been talking about on this channel. I think there's like 20 videos so far of me exploring all of these limiting beliefs that I've had that have dictated my actions and like how I live my life and how much I'm over them, which is why I'm leaving these situations and going to Spain to reset my nervous system, reevaluate my relationship to work, and just like release so much. And it's going to be so ugly. Like, this is ugly work and it's going to be hard. And I'm going to be in an environment where I don't have like the same support system that I do here, which might be a good thing because my susceptibility to like others' beliefs and ideas is also a problem, And so I really just wanted to be me and God in a brand new place and be purged and cleansed because otherwise I fear that I will continue. I don't want to cry. I'll just continue to put myself in situations that I don't know how to navigate and like protect myself because I will find myself in the same scenarios in the future, you don't escape white supremacy in America. It doesn't matter if you are a business owner, you have like a less exposure to it, but it's still there, you know? Um, and so I need to really just work on boundaries, like work on my confidence and my communication and just like understanding what I'm going to put up with and what I won't. And I'm really excited to like go on this journey because it's just been so exhausting like being the only black face in a Zoom call or in a Google Meet call. Like it's becoming distracting at this point, which didn't really used to bother me, you know, like for a while. But it's like being in a Zoom and I'm the only person that looks like me, that has my skin tone, that has like my hair type, you know, and it begins to distract me as to like what we're even talking about because I am constantly thinking about like, okay, my contributions have to sound this way. I have to like have this type of facial expression. If I'm off camera, that's going to mean something different for me versus if like Elizabeth or Frank is off camera, you know, like and it's just, and I was saying in another video, like even if all of those thoughts are not going through other people's minds, the fact that they're going through mine is there for a reason. Like they're going through my head for a reason because I'm navigating something that others do not have to, you know? And that is just like so exhausting. Another thing that's exhausting is I could contribute something in my own way and say something, and I'm met with these stares, these blank stares, silence, confusion, and like, okay, like topic pivoting. But literally, Elizabeth or Frank could say the exact, listen to me, this has happened so many times, the exact same thing, and be met with curiosity, be met with an invitation to expound on what you're saying, met with like head nods. It's all this like subliminal messaging that goes into the fact that I'm imagining somebody rolling their eyes and saying, rehashing when I want to talk about something that's on my mind. All of these subliminal messaging that contributes to that. That's also exhausting that I have to like come down from after a day, and it just chips away and chips away and chips away and chips away. And it's just like, yo, I want to be at certain tables. I used to want to be at certain tables and fight through what it means to sit at that table, fight through the fact that like, yes, I deserve to be here, yes, my contribution matters because I'm bringing a diverse perspective or whatever, or I'm representing a demographic that has never been represented here on this board or on this committee or on this panel. But now it's like, yo, I'm so tired of fighting through sitting in this chair at this table. I'd much rather just get up and leave, make my own tables and sit at tables where it's easy to sit at them with the Elizabeths of the world, you know, because it's like there are such good some people call them like spicy whites, you know, but just like there are just such good hearted, truly fight the power, truly know what it means to like navigate white supremacy and like call it out and all these things. And I'm grateful to have found some of those people in my life, you know, because they have spoken so much encouragement to me. Because one thing that I do and did, which I don't do anymore because I am in the process of learning what it means to trust myself, is workshop my language with them. Like I would be trying to say like, yo, I'm trying to say da 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 da, but whenever I speak, it doesn't land, right? Whenever I speak, it doesn't land. So how would you say it? Because if you say it, then maybe da da da. But I would say what they, you know, how they would filter what I'm trying to say, and it wouldn't land because it's coming from me all the same. It's coming from me all the same. So anyway, it's just takes such a psychological toll, a physiological toll, because even now, like I have to, my heart beats, or just I get so nervous. I get jittery. I like start to feel like I'm about to faint, like all this stuff when I'm just going into a meeting where I'll have to contribute because I'm trying to figure out like what is the best way to be taken seriously and to be seen as like a person that is like trustworthy, or like navigating whatever perceptions there are of me. What will it take from me to get there? And I'm just so tired of it. And it makes me like overperform, and there's negative perceptions of that too, because it's like, oh my gosh, like such a perfectionist, like you want this, you want that, like okay. And it's like, yo, I can't, it just feels like I can't do the right thing if I underperform, negative, overperform, negative. If I'm just there, the way that I say anything perceived as negative, and it's just like, yo, I can't do this anymore. I can't do this anymore. At least not where I'm at right now, because again, I'll face it in the future, but I hope to be in a different mental space, have a different level of like emotional security and like confidence in myself to be able to navigate it with strength. You know, I need to go work out for a couple years. Work out so that if I ever find myself in this scenario again, y'all won't bother me. You just won't bother me anymore. And I'll be able to laugh. Last thing I'll say, this is getting very long. Thanks for listening, everybody. Is I was reading a comment on um this video that I posted a couple days ago, and the woman was saying, you know, she's older and she never integrated any of the feelings, you know, that were being projected onto her by white people, but it was just she overperformed and it was exhausting, so she just left. And I want to get to that point where it's like I'm not integrating, because I began thinking like, am I being ungrateful? You know, like am I actually being ungrateful? Like so many people lost their jobs, yo. Like, and I am one of like six of 80 that was preserved. So am I actually being ungrateful for requesting that my salary is reinstated alongside everybody else's? The psychological toll, like I don't want it to seep in. I'm trying to like peep game and determine what I'm going to do and keep it pushing without it bothering me. I'm so tired of being bothered by something that is so ingrained into people who can vocalize some intricacies of oppression and like white supremacy perpetuated by those same people, because we're all steeped in it, like in this teacup of America. Like we're all in the tea bag, you know? Oh gosh, I just, yeah, I can't wait to get to that point. And if you have any tips for me, please share them down below. But thanks for listening to this unfortunate story time. And yeah, I invite you to subscribe and like follow along, because yeah, up until I leave for Spain, it's going to be a lot of this unpacking and talking about, yeah, the visa process and like my process in moving abroad and more about the whys behind it. But it was really healing for me to like sit here surrounded by trees and like talk about this out loud, because yeah, it's not rehashing. This is the actual healing, like talk therapy, which YouTube is providing me these days. So thanks for listening, everybody. And yeah, if you have any tips, drop them below, and I'll see you tomorrow in the next video in this daily YouTube posting journey. Bye, guys.